opinion on this.
That's fine. That's fine. Well, let's give the people what they want then, I think. The chat is still rioting. There's robots going on and all that sort of stuff. So let's move on to Duelyst.
All right.
I'm excited for this. For those of you who don't know, once again, let me just explain. Duelyst is a free-to-play, competitive tactics card game sort of deal. It's been in open beta since October. It's finally officially launching and leaving beta next Wednesday, which is very exciting. It's been a game that I've talked about on the show for a while and have been enjoying for a very, very long time. So I'm excited to have you guys here to show off a little bit.
Sure. So one thing that we could start off with is maybe give people a little bit, for people who haven't played Duelyst, a little bit of an overview. And what I'd love to do is, can people see the screen now?
Yeah. I'm not sure. Not quite yet, but almost. We're going to pull it up here. There we go. Now people can see the screen for you.
Okay, great.
And for those of you who are listening on iTunes, once again, we're going to be doing trying to whisk you away on wings of sound and explain what's going on.
We have a function called watch. What that does is it takes the last 30 minutes or last hours like games, and they will actually post it up based on different divisions, based on where you are. So one thing that we can do right now actually is maybe the chat can look at a game here, and then we can just pick any one of these, and it will actually just drop right in, and we can spend some time to talk about it. So just on the fly, talk about a game.
Okay, yeah. So if you guys have, call out a name, and we'll pick one of these.
Yeah,
guys.
You guys want
one of these
which
matchups.
one do you guys want to see on a diamond?
Now I'm worried about these usernames. I'm reading them really quickly before I can get ahead of the problem.
What?
I actually really like this too. We spoke briefly a couple weeks ago about the watch feature, and I think it is a really good, easy way to just like, if people want to learn how to play the game, like just watch a diamond level play.
All right, I'm just gonna.
We have Tholam. I see Tholam got.
All right.
Tholam?
Oh, vet versus vet. Okay.
That's a mirror matchup. Let's pick a different one.
Okay. Well, then there was somebody else said the Magmar versus Songhai one.
This one?
Magmar's the
Second one?
Yeah.
All right.
There we go.
Let's run this.
So, and also, if people in chat let us know if the volume is off or anything, if we need to be louder or the game needs to be quieter, just let us know.
So I'll give you the quick skinny on Duelyst. So Duelyst is a collectible card game with a tactical battlefield. So positioning matters, how you place your units, and what's unique about our game too is that you have a general that's actually on the board itself. As a result, you have to think about how you're going to protect your general. It's unlike any other game where you can move your general, you can drop minions, you can drop spells, and there's also a third card type called artifacts. And so right now, one of the cool things that we have replays, so you can watch and spectate all the games that are out there, but also check out your own personal profile to watch your own games.
What we're doing right now is we're just watching a replay of a game in Diamond Division, which is one of the highest divisions. So this is going to be hopefully a pretty competitive game as well. The replays, we compress the time a little bit, so they are moving a little bit faster than the actual game. So what you're going to notice is that, both players are playing minions to the board, and the minions, they are like little characters. All of them have the same movement range, and they have their attack and health stats, as well as usually, some kind of card text ability, some kind of a special ability. Now, each player starts with the player on the left side is the starting player. They start with 2 mana, and the player on the right side is the second mover, and they start with 3 mana. There are 3 objects in the middle of the board that you move towards that you can capture for bonus mana. So the objective of the game is, kill the enemy general, and you achieve that by, tactical positioning, playing your cards into the right spots, playing the right sequence of cards, creating the combos, as well as kind of building your decks and finding the right combination of cards for each faction to work through the season competitive ladder.
Yeah, so this is a good analog for people who like chess, who are into positioning games, classic turn-based strategy games, but also the familiarity of collectible card games. So a lot of the concepts that you played in other CCGs, including card advantage, tempo, and sort of cycling, and how you manage your resources and your deck are familiar concepts in our game here. Really the big difference again is a tactical battlefield. And also, we invested a lot of time in other kind of areas that aren't specific to the game itself, such as in-game tournament support for tools for organizers, all the way to being able to create really cool story lore that's actually very deep, coherent, and logical.
It's tied to the game and unlocks as you play the game, so you get reveals and stuff like that.
And matches last really quickly. You know, it's like 5 to 10 minutes, so you can squeeze in a couple games during the day.
Chat didn't have much faith in the Magmar player there, by the way.
Really? Yeah.
So there are 6 factions, and we can kind of give a quick overview. So this is your collection screen where you can see the cards that you own that you can build decks with. So there are 6 different factions, and each of them have a unique identity, unique flavor, and again, are ideally a wide variety of deck archetypes that you can build. There is a neutral card pool that you can use to build your decks with any particular faction, and you can build as many decks as you want and try them out again on the season competitive ladder, which is our constructed mode. And we also have a draft mode, which is called the Gauntlet, that pits you against other players who have also drafted a deck. And you earn rewards based on how many wins you've accumulated and how long you can last in the Gauntlet.
Yeah, what's really unique too about our game is that every single card has its own units that are animated. They have their own audio, they animate, and they move around. So they aren't just a static image on a card, but they come alive in the game, and they almost act like little miniatures or something like hollow chests in Star Wars. That's something that, of course, is very unique and different, and what Emil was kind of talking about in terms of the different play modes. We have practice where you could play against like the AI, and then we have a season ladder where you can earn better and better prizes if you hit like a highest rank, and we have a monthly season. And of course we have the Gauntlet, which is a way for you to draft cards. It's our draft mode, and the longer that you survive before and acquire as many wins, you get better prizes before you get like 3 losses. And one of the things that we have been investing time into is solo challenges, and long term we plan to build more and more of these challenges. These are short, so these take like 2 to 3 minutes, and the whole idea. Go ahead.
Well, these are, if you play Hearthstone at all or are familiar with the Hearthstone community, the community started doing these things called like lethal challenges, basically lethal puzzles, where you have one turn to kill the other person. And I really like these because these are just basically that, but implemented in the actual game.
Yeah, so basically I have to kill the enemy, which is in the center here. So what we try to do is teach people different concepts of the game, and that way people can learn on their own time. So it's a teaching tool, as well as a really fun sort of thing that you could do on your own, because we are also planning to release our game on mobile. So besides the PC and the Mac, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to be able to play solo if you want to, in an even shorter period of time if you're not playing a ranked game and things like that.
Yeah,
so we have
there's a lot of these little solo puzzles, and all of them come with some amount of reward as well. So completing them does give you does earn in-game rewards as well, and it's a feature that we're planning to. It's definitely a first-class feature that we're very excited about extending in the future.
Yeah, and we have this area called the Codex, which is the history of the world of Mithron and the world of Duelyst. And there's a map, and we're continually expanding on the lore. There's just going to be so much stuff in here, and every single card will have its own lore card. So not only is it going to have flavor text, which is just 1 or 2 lines, but you're going to have 300 to 1,000 words per card. So for lore story lovers who like to read, it's available. But if you don't, it's very similar to playing System Shock, BioShock. There's audio journals or like stuff in Skyrim. It's optional. You can get deep into the lore, but it's not necessary.
And that lore is something you've added kind of recently, right? The Codex or those lore things. How long has the lore been part of the beta, and then how long do you see it kind of expanding for?
We spent about 1.5 years writing it, and we have it all done. And so it's just really more about pushing it out and then gradually making sure that everything is ultra consistent. So what gets harder through time is, as you develop all the lore, as you develop all the sort of pieces, is actually cross-checking and making sure everything's like interoperable.
I think your internet may have taken a break over here.
Oh no!
Might want to restart that.
Here, we can plug you in too if you guys aren't on the Ethernet yet.
Yeah, that might be helpful.
Oh, I actually don't have an Ethernet cable, but it's fine. Actually, what
Tragic.
I can do is talk a little bit more about some of the reveals.
Yeah, so
while
let's
we're
give some
doing that.
context too about like kind of a couple weeks ago you guys did a pretty major change to the game as it had been, which is you changed it from drawing 2 cards per turn to 1 card per turn. And then since then you've done a balance patch, and then now there's another patch called patch 63 which is coming up this week, right? Or when can we maybe expect that?
It's coming soon.
Okay.
We're not going to say specifically, put an exact date. We're trying to work around a lot of tournaments and things that are happening in the community as well to not be incredibly disruptive.
Okay.
But yes, very soon. Obviously, it's coming before the end of the month. The way we do patches is we do 2 patches, one mid-month patch and one end-of-the-month patch. And we also release 4 cards at the end of each month. And these are called our season cards. And those are cards that you have the opportunity to earn a free copy of each card if you do really well. So these are brand new cards. And depending on how well you do on the season ladder and which divisions you hit, you get a free copy of one of each of the season cards. So expect to usually, like, we have a patch at the end of the month. So that's going to be the same thing for patch 63.
Cool. We're logging back in right now. For those of you listening on the RSS feed as well, I'm sorry you can't see the.
All right, I'm about to jump on the ladder and show everybody what's what in Silver Division.
Nice. I'm sorry you guys can't see the game
On your
because
test account.
Sure, that's the count.
the art is really spectacular. You guys, I know you have some really good pixel artists, like the person who did the art for Chasm. Is one of your artists.
Glabro Kotaki, he's an incredible pixel artist, and he was the lead pixel artist for Rogue Legacy and for Chasm. We also have Christoph Ha, who was at Blizzard for 8 years. He helped and worked on a lot of the IPs there in the cinematics, including World of Warcraft and Diablo 3, as well as Titan, which is now called Overwatch.
Right.
Yeah. So he helped and worked on a lot of the concepts. So all the generals and all the sort of line art that you see is done by Chris. So
apparently somebody in chat mentioned that also the servers are apparently having trouble for them too. So this might just be some of
it could be something related.
the worst timed server outage possible.
No,
but so what I guess what was the goal? This is a question I've had since the change. Is what was the goal of changing from 1 card draw per turn from 2? Like, what did you guys want to do? Like, why?
It's twofold. We kind of mentioned this before. The main reason is because we wanted to ensure that there was more deck diversity as well as early game diversity in terms of how people were playing. And we wanted to expand the card pool in that sense. Secondly, what we're reviewing today, so that was phase 1, was patch 61, and the upcoming patch 63, we're revealing something really big, and that was part of the reason why we were doing the 1 card draw. And the big reveal is that, and this is something that we've wanted to do for a long time, this is the #1 biggest community-related request that we've had for the last 2 years, is to make generals unique, to not just give them a standard 225 stat and to have no abilities. So that's something that we've really spent a lot of time on. And the cool thing that we're revealing is that we're going to be releasing 2 new generals per faction. So there will be, right now there's 6, so there are going to be 12 new generals, and each of them will have a unique Bloodborne spell. So it's going to be a Bloodborne trait that they will have with different abilities and different things. So what this is going to do is, first of all, the draw engine is actually going to increase. So, and you're going to also have opportunities for mana sinks in the game when you have 1 extra mana. The great thing too now is that you can start to think about a 1.5 draw. So this is something that we've built and planned for a long time. And it's called a Bloodborne spell because it's all tied to the lore. All of these generals are labeled as Bloodborne in this current generation of the modern age. And there's a reason why they're called Bloodborne. So that's a big one, and I'd love to even reveal some of the cool spells that we're introducing.
Yeah.
So
We've
actually-
gotten back into the servers.
Oh, good.
Emil is
I'm over
in the
here in
middle
the
of a
ladder
game.
game, showing AOG what's what.
Yeah, so we have Argon Highmane has a new Bloodborne spell called Roar, and what it does is that it would actually buff a friendly minion that's nearby. Kalios has a Blink Bloodborne spell, which allows him to teleport a friendly minion a certain number of spaces. And of course, you're going to start to see 6 new generals that's going to be out soon, and each of them have very, very sort of unique things. So you can actually cast like a. Actually, I want to pull out the actual spells, if possible, at some point. But
Absolutely. I think
So I
we got
can be
this. No,
ultra
we'll give AOG here a free win. Obviously, everybody was looking at my elite level play here. So
all right, I'm gonna just quickly unplug this because I have my notes on my laptop. So
Alrighty.
is that cool?
Or we can just jump off of it so
Alright.
we can take it down from the screen.
Okay.
So no one will see your secret notes.
I just want to make sure that I'm accurate when I say these things. All right, so these are some of the spells. Argon Highmane, Roar, and it's going to give a friendly minion nearby your general +2 attack. Then the alternate general, Zeran Sunforge, has a new spell called Afterglow, and it will restore 3 health to a friendly minion. Kaleo Zan has a new Bloodborne spell called Blink. It will teleport a friendly minion up to 2 spaces. Riva Eventide, which is the alternate female general, has a new spell called Arcane Heart, and it will summon a Heartseeker nearby your general. Xeric Starstrider has a new spell called Wind Shroud, and it will summon a 2/2 Wind Dervish with Rush on a random tile nearby your general. Sinus Sage, the new alternate Vitruvian general, has Psionic Strike, and your general will deal double damage to minions this turn. Lilith Blight Chaser has Shadow Spawn.
leave some of the spells as uncut. You don't have to go through all of
Okay,
them.
all right.
Leave something.
All right, fine,
Why
fine,
have we been
fine.
dropping this patch? Let's just kind of.
Okay, all right. We'll do
That's
a
all
pause
you get.
then.
So
Emil just put a cork in it.
Yeah, all right.
Keith loves doing spoilers. This is his most favorite thing. And I'm constantly like the adult supervision trying to keep the spoilers contained until the last possible minute. But yeah, the objective, as Keith was mentioning, Duelyst our objective is to make it a competitive, skill-based game with short sessions. So it's quick to play, really easy to get into, and that you're matched with opponents of equal kind of skill, and that it's primarily is a multiplayer game, and it's a multiplayer competitive experience. And one of the challenges there was the variety, right? Is that you want to have a high variety and see a lot of different things when you're playing. And in card games, what happens is things consolidate around certain deck types, certain archetypes, certain play styles, aggro, mid-range, control, things like that. And part of the things that we've been doing, up until launch, and these are things that we've been planning for a really long time, is we've been focusing on increasing that variety, that you'll experience more things, but also keeping the heart kind of Duelyst as a skill-based game that isn't based around random effects and random keywords and random damage and things like that, and keeping that heart kind of alive in the game as well. So as part of the general spells, it's something, again, because there are now 12 generals. And 12 of these spells, there's a high amount of variety, and still some, consistency around, like a high degree of consistency, because you know which spell that you're getting, and you know how to play it. You can build around those things. You know what to expect once you encounter one of these generals to a certain degree. So I think it's like it's a good summary of kind of our direction and how the changes that we've been making to the game during beta have been kind of coalescing into where we are today. And unlike most betas, we treated our beta like a real beta. We made drastic changes, and the community weren't always as excited about some of the changes that we had to make, and sometimes they loved the changes we had to make. But we've always been very deliberate and very decisive about making changes to make sure to keep the game, high variety, high skill, and still keep the games incredibly short, 5 to 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
And just really trying to ensure that all the players in every division are having a good time. Not just the bronze players, not just the gold division players, that anyone based on their skill level can still have a pretty good time, even if they're just starting out on the first day.
So Emil cut you off on the generals, which is fine, but I am curious to know a little bit more about how they work. Like, how much do these abilities cost? Can you use them every turn? Like, things like that.
So the main point around Bloodborne spells is that they unlock during your match. They're not available every turn, nor are they necessarily available at the start. And
Well, they're
these
definitely not available
Yeah,
at
they're
the
not
start.
definitely not available on the start. And after, I think, turn 9, you can basically use it anytime. So the idea, though, is that there is still a mana cost for these spells, so it's just an extra option for you to kind of think about how you want to build your deck around.
And these are spells. They interact with spell-based decks.
Yes,
they
immediate
interact with
effects.
units that react to spells and things like that as well.
But they're not like a card in your hand, right?
They're not a card in your hand, so they don't count necessarily as a card in your hand. Still as a card, still counts as a spell, essentially,
Gotcha.
from a like a rules perspective.
Right. And you said they're like, if you wanted, you could use it every turn. It's not like a one-time thing it unlocks and then you've used it and it's done for the game.
So we'll leave that a little bit discoverable.
Okay.
It's not exactly like that, but it's like, again, they unlock during the game, and you get opportunities to use it.
There's a
as
slot, a custom general slot with the spell that'll like pop in.
Gotcha.
And you can use it.
Cool. And then you mentioned also earlier about not wanting to make every general like a 225. Does that mean that some of these generals have different stats as well, or?
Okay, I actually maybe I'll correct that, meaning that all of them are so similar
Gotcha.
that they're all just the same, and people
Right.
are like, hey, can you do something different? Maybe change the stats or change something about them.
Uh-huh.
But our approach, of course, is just to 100% focus on Bloodborne spells and kind of tune it around that.
Cool. And you guys were mentioning earlier, you name dropped a couple cards that were on either the chopping block or the change list. Like, what are you guys expecting to, like, what do you want to accomplish with changes in that sort of thing and general nerfs? Are you still kind of feeling out, some of the ramifications of the draw change, or like what can we expect from that?
Yeah, it takes a long time for some of these things to settle, right? Which is that, once the hive mind goes about solving a multiplayer game and finding the optimal combination or an optimal build, I mean, you're going to see this in pretty much any game on MOBAs, any game that's competitive online. And, it takes a little bit of time for some of those learnings to solidify. And again, our objectives, and this is kind of something that's always challenging to communicate, is that there are, again, different skill levels, and there are different kind of challenges with the game. So we always focus on high variety, so you don't see the exact same thing every single time, that there's not units that are, exact openings, things like that. And also that we take a look at competitive balance at every single level, which is something that might be really well balanced at the elite level. And where a lot of the most vocal members of the community might not be very well balanced at the lowest levels of the season ladder. And so sometimes we'll change something like that, or we'll make a change, and the response will be, why would you make a change? That was a balanced card or something of that sort. But something that's important to understand is that there are different kind of player levels, and it's kind of a living game, and some of these things are organic. So we're always we're like, the way that we approach it is we look at it from all those different vectors and all those different dimensions.
Cool. And then I'm sorry if you guys mentioned this before, but there was a question in chat of how these generals are going to be unlocked, essentially, the new ones.
They're part of the core faction progression. So in Duelyst, when you start playing, you only start with one general unlocked, and that is the Leonard general. And that is the one that we find the most accessible. It's probably the easiest to play from a play style, easiest for deck building. And you unlock other generals. The first set of generals, the ones that are already available in the game, you unlock by defeating them in practice. Now the alternate generals, the second general for each faction, will unlock at level 10 for that faction. And the way you reach level 10 is you just play games. You just earn a certain amount of XP, and it's fairly quick. As those who play the game will know that reaching level 10 is, you can do it within one play session if you wanted to. So it's we don't gate this. We gate it primarily when we gate content or we gate things. The consideration isn't something that we're trying to, make people grind for it or something of that sort. Also, the consideration is that we don't want to overwhelm new players with choice, with content, with different types of play styles. that they're all very within reach, but there is some agency that the players get to decide which one to pursue first, which faction to specialize in, which alternate general to unlock first. So a lot of it is that a brand new player of that choice, 12 generals, that would be a little bit much.
Yeah, no, I get that, and like you said, it doesn't take too long if you just try to go into a faction and practice it a lot and play it a lot. Yeah. One of the questions that I saw in chat that I wanted to bring up as well is or just jumping off of what you said is, how do you like? What's your strategy? I think I asked this before, like a few weeks ago. Like, what's your strategy with trying to balance across multiple skill levels like that? Because that's a challenge that pretty much every game of every genre, competitive game of every genre faces. You know, that's a question that you see in League of Legends a lot too, of like, oh, this champion is incredibly OP at low levels and unplayed at high levels. You know, you see it in class-based shooters as well. Like, so what is Counterplay's design philosophy in trying to like figure that stuff out?
So specifically, let's say we look at the starter decks, and we'll start to think about, can this new player, based on very, very limited set, it's hard for them to remember and memorize a lot of keywords initially. So you'll notice that we make the golems a bit stronger. They don't have any keywords. They're simpler to use and to place. And also we will introduce units that are closers. So what I mean by that is it allows them to think about how they could chain one or two different cards initially to close a game and win a game. But usually those cards aren't actually super top level, S rank level type of cards. But from a starter standpoint, I think that those are things that are simpler to, more accessible to understand. So those are the type of things that we spend a lot of time thinking about, because a lot of people go, why do you have this card that does XYZ? It's like completely useless. But it's not necessarily for the first day player. So thank you very much for revealing what you did. You guys have anything else you want to share, or is Emil plugged the leak there?
Oh boy.
Well, we can open it up to Twitch chat Q&A as well. This is the portion of the show where we take your questions from Twitch chat. Anything that you might have on your mind on PC gaming this week. There are obviously a lot of Duelyst fans in the chat, so if you have any questions for Keith or Emil about Duelyst as well, please let your voice be heard and let us know. Tag us with @PCGamer in Twitch chat, and that'll pop up for me in the chat, and I can take your questions. Once again, also, if you are watching on YouTube, listening on iTunes, anything like that, where it is not Wednesday at 2 p.m., then come and join us. You're always welcome to come to twitch.tv/PCGamer at 1 p.m. every Wednesday Pacific time, and you can ask your questions here. And if you are a subscriber on Twitch chat, we will definitely be taking your questions, like this first one from Twitch longtime subscriber JBJ Blaze, who asks, will Duelyst release on Steam? Also, what do you think of comparing it to Scrolls in terms of its gameplay? That's a two-part question.
We will be releasing on Steam, so it's going to be very close to the official launch. So we're setting everything up for that.
Cool.
So it'll be pretty much in tandem, very much in the next beat after we release on the 27th of April. The question about Scrolls, was it more about how similar is it, or how is it different?
What do you think of comparing it was the actual question in terms of gameplay. I think one of the easiest ways to say it, or to show how they're not similar, I guess, is that movement is really, really important in Duelyst. Like, positioning and movement is really important, and while that was an important part of Scrolls, it also felt like you could just kind of like drop things and do your own thing, whereas like in this you have to think about positioning and movement in terms of the other player's positioning and movement, because you're on the same side of the board as them, right? Like in Scrolls, you have your side of the board, they have their side of the board.
I'd also point out that in Scrolls you have these 5 totems that you're trying to protect. Our game is very different in the sense that you're just trying to kill the king, which is your general. So that's something that's very different from a victory condition standpoint. And then another one is that we try to minimize cards that have this sort of countdown mechanic. So in Scrolls, you'll notice that certain cards only will actually create an effect a couple turns later. So
Those things add up.
And those things add up because once you start to have many, many units on the board and they all have different countdowns, it's hard to even remember exactly how you're going to sequence your moves because you're thinking ahead way too much. So ours is more focused on what's your current board state today, how are you going to deal with that, and how do you build your deck to kind of anticipate for those things.
Yeah, I think they're pretty damn different games. Besides the fact that they both have like a board and cards.
Yeah, and the biggest difference I'd say from kind of like the experience of somebody who just enjoys that type of game is the game length, which is that Scrolls was Scrolls games could take a really long time, and that was it was one of the intended or emergent properties of the way that the game was built. And in Duelyst, the games are built to take 5 to 10 minutes. With kind of a normal distribution thereof. You're not going to run into some games that run 3 minutes and some games that run 15 minutes. It's going to be a very compact competitive experience.
So a couple more questions. There's been a few questions calling out asking about the Abyssian hero powers or the Abyssian Bloodborne spells. Already calling them hero powers, guys. They're Bloodborne spells, please. I don't know if you guys want to share that, but I'm just saying it's out there.
You can share one. You can have one cookie. No, I'm joking.
Kasiva Soul Reaper, the alternate general, has a new spell called Abyssal Scar. What it does is it deals 1 damage to a minion. If it dies this turn, the space turns into Shadow Creep.
That's a cool one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I like the Shadow Creep mechanic a lot. It's like it's hard to use for me, I think, but it's also just like a very cool one. I love the things that change the board like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's also an example that is an alternate general that unlocks at level 10. That, even the ability is a little bit of a mouthful. It's something we want players to level into and learn over time. And, Shadow Creep, even as a mechanic, is a little bit of a discoverable in the game. So these things start clicking as a player, once you find this general goes really well with this card that was previously thought unplayable or something of that sort. So.
Yeah. Fresh Tortoise asks, anything special for us beta players after release?
We do have, and we have promised a couple of beta exclusive cosmetics. And thank you everybody for your patience. Our kind of cosmetics initiative has taken longer than we anticipated because we've been focusing on building content for the game and making changes and taking the time during the beta to actually balance things and polish up a lot of the loose ends that were kind of critical for everybody to really enjoy the game once we launch.
Yeah, I posted this on Reddit in terms of the cosmetics. We had to basically fire all the Serpentis, so the other snow chasers are wrapping everything up for you guys. It's going to be coming soon.
Let's see, I just lost another question that I had. Oh yeah, Black Sonic asks, how do we get Bloodborne spells in Gauntlet? That's an interesting question.
That is a good question, and there is an answer to that, but we're going to leave it as discoverable.
Okay. This isn't the full reveal, guys. You gotta wait for the patch notes when those come. Let's see. A couple requests to ask about nerfs. Specifically, I think people want to know what's happening to Tuskboar, as you mentioned earlier.
Tuskboar will be nerfed. I won't go into the specifics, but it will be nerfed. Songweaver has been redesigned. Sunsteel Defender has been nerfed. The other sort of egregious one...
Well, I think the important thing to talk about is that, why we're doing these things again, because a lot of people will look at that and say, well, that was a perfectly well-balanced card because it's a faction card, so you're not going to see it in every game or something like that. But a lot of these challenges are also pervasiveness and, what the meta looks like and what you want to see, for a player playing the game. Again, if you're somewhere in gold division or something like that and you're running into essentially the same build every single time and that it's a kind of play out of hand build where you don't really have a lot of agency or way to respond to it or stuff like that. And we'll definitely have design notes as part of our patch notes. For those who have been playing in the beta, I know that we write really elaborate patch notes, and we used to do weekly patches. We're in our 63rd patch, and we're doing bi-weekly patches, but at the same time, we'll give a little bit more color and detail on why we're looking at these cards and what the challenges are. Because, a lot of times, I think that's one of the things that we usually make a change and let the community take it and think about it, and it's something definitely we would like to continue, but we do also, I think we will have to offer a little bit more color so people understand that sometimes these things there's different vectors, like you said. With multiplayer games, it's not. They're meant to be living games to a certain degree.
Moving forward, we'll have a 1 or 2 sentence blurb, just kind of giving high-level reasoning around our changes and sort of the rationale justification for that.
Yeah.
There was a question about the new generals, specifically. Oh, I lost it now. I'm sorry. There's a lot of questions. I'm sorry if I miss any, guys. Specifically about how many are being released, because you guys said that there'll be 2 new generals per faction, but that there's going to be 12 total.
12 total. 1 new general per faction.
Gotcha.
For
And
now.
So it's 1 new general per faction, and then the old general is getting a new Bloodborne
That's
spell.
correct.
Okay, so that's where
That is exactly correct.
Cool. Just helpful to clarify. There's a question from Aquador. Says, you leaked Grandmasters Endo already. Will he be similar to Grandmaster Zir? Any closer info?
Grandmasters Endo is a new faction unit that's going to be released for the Denizens of Shimzar expansion. It's part of the Songhai lore, and the whole idea is that the Grandmasters are the upper like ranks of this whole tournament structure that kind of happens in the lore and things like that. And so what we wanted to do is to make sure that every single faction also has a representation of their own Grandmaster. So you have Grandmaster Zir, you got Grandmaster Zendo, and there's going to be others in the other factions that you'll get to see. And they're super cool looking, and yeah, they're just like fun guys to have in your deck, and we just want to add that in.
And that goes along with what you were talking about of the lore in general, right? Like, are we going to start... Like, how many of the cards that are already released are kind of have places in the lore compared to are more cards in the new expansions going to be more lore heavy? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. There are certain marquee cards and characters and generals and creatures that are iconic. Like there's the Snow Chasers, there's the Zurai, there's the dervishes, and where the most important, more interesting creatures that people spend a lot of time talking about, we actually then incorporate into our lore too. So we have a bunch of ones that we focus on. We don't spend a lot of time on the Denizens of Shimzar yet, but a lot of these core characters that have been around for tens and 20,000 years. But if people start to really get related or really like a certain card, then that actually encourages us to build a very specific story around them in our lore. So anything that people are doing in the game actually influences how we write the game too.
Cool. Mm-hmm. That's very cool. So like if there was a card that the community, like you just didn't expect people to like as much as they did, can you think of any examples? Like, is there a card that you just kind of laughed at me? Like, do you know of a card that like everybody loved that you had no idea they would, or anything like that?
Well, I mean, the best cards are the ones where there's like the community name for the card. You know, like whether it's like whether it's like Pumbaa for the piggy, or whether it's like Rocky for when people give the cards like their own little nicknames. So. That, like, I remember to the beta, there was like one card that we changed completely and changed the name, but everybody called it George because the name was so complex.
Spectral Revenant.
Was that Spectral Revenant? That was George?
So. Yeah.
Might have to change him to George.
O2 Munga asks, do you feel the game will slow down with the introduction of the Bloodborne spells?
Based on the playtesting, that is not the case. In fact, one of the objectives of the Bloodborne spells is to create a mechanic in the game that, to avoid running into a situation where there's nothing to do and the game starts grinding out. Since these spells become active throughout the game,
gotcha.
And they activate during the game, they actually escalate is a strong word. They don't escalate the game, but they definitely add, something interesting to the game at a very specific point.
The general sort of spells, the Bloodborne spells, are also going to help to counter sort of our transition from a very aggro sort of
tempo-based gameplay
game right now to something that's a little bit more mid-range, and you're going to start to see that in patch 63.
Somebody asked, what's Keith's favorite lore card?
My favorite lore card? I like Aerial Rift, so that's a more recent one that I just wrote. So I'll push that out to people and post that one up as a preview.
All right, and then there was a couple of people. I think one of the questions, or the reason that last question of will the game slow down, was asked was I saw a lot of people in chat mentioning that like a lot of the top tier decks right now are these fast aggro decks, and if you don't get your Bloodborne spell until turn 9, like is that too late? Sort of, I think is where that question was coming from. Is are you going to make it to turn 9 once these come out?
Right. Well, I mean, look, that's a difficult question to answer. It's not the mechanic itself isn't intended to counter one specific playstyle or another specific playstyle. It's something that you can build around and something that's supposed to increase variety and increase, kind of give you an anchor to build around and give some personality to the generals, as well as to address some of the concerns we talked about with regard to, running out of steam in games and things like that.
The spell becomes available far before turn 9, so...
Far before turn 9? Yeah, I think that's a kind of a straw question, but yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I just try to look out for my chat and try to represent what they're feeling here.
Yeah.
It's just hard when it's going at like 90 miles an hour down the page. There was a good question of people were reacting strongly to that Abyssian Bloodborne spell that you announced. I think one of the questions was, how are you nerfing Shadow Creep to make up for that OP Bloodborne spell? Are you guys, but there was another question similar to that of just maps in general, like how do you guys plan on adding new maps, new backgrounds, new stuff like that? Is that coming?
Visuals, or is the question related to visuals or like a map size and things like that?
I don't know specifically.
Okay, well, map size is going to stay the same. We're not going to increase the grid size, if you will.
Right.
And the terrain is not, the grid is meant to keep it a competitive game and to keep it a game with some consistency around experience, as well as keep game lengths as something manageable. We're not, the game's balanced around this particular grid size. So that's something that's not going to change in, anytime soon. It's not going to change in the competitive modality of the game. And in terms of, there's a lot of backgrounds and cosmetics that are in progress and artwork that's in line to be added to the game for each individual faction and home turf for every individual general, all kinds of fun stuff like that.
Home turf maps, definitely visual maps, so you're going to have more maps in the rotation, for
Cool.
sure.
And are some of those going to be kind of themed towards the expansions as well?
Yeah.
Cool. There's multiple questions about if Captain Hankheart is getting buffed. And I want to just ask in general, if you can't speak on that, he was one of the first epics I opened up, and I immediately fell in love with him because he seems like. Can you just explain where that card came from? Because he seems oddly out of place.
All right, I'm going to take this one.
Please.
So we had a lot of early backers of the game and people who were really excited about the game, and some of those people that backed us and that wanted to be a part of the development cycle, they got a little perk, which was they got to design their own card. Not the abilities of the card, obviously, more conceptually the idea of the card. So this was a really good friend of mine that, he used to have a rabbit, and he really loved this rabbit, and he really loves sci-fi. So that he wanted to have a unit that was this stranded kind of space person, as well as somehow work a rabbit into it as well. So that was kind of the combination factor, is that, and there are a couple of cards that were visually kind of proposed by some of our backers. What are some of the other cards that were designed by, that the visuals were proposed by the folks?
Eclipse
is one of those.
and Dueylst.
Zenrui is as well, I believe.
Yeah, Zenrui was designed by...
That is a great card.
It's a Kickstarter card. Dueylst.
Yeah, so that's the background of why that card seems so out of place, and that's why we love it so much, because it's something that, Keith writes all the lore and he comes up with the whole story. It's so outside of where what he would have added, and that's kind of fun part of the fun.
It did put me on a... It's like, how am I going to fit this guy into the lore? But I found a solution, so it'll work out.
Cool. Grincher Z, who, thank you for your deck lists. You helped me a lot in learning how to play this game, asks, will the general hero powers be general restricted, or can Lilith use the new hero power as well? So, if you want the cosmetics of one general but the ability of the other?
That's a tough question. No, we're going to keep it restricted. It's a clarity thing more than anything. If you're facing this general, you should expect this hero power.
Cool.
So, so that way, there's also character around these things. But from a cosmetics perspective, we are exploring adding obviously skins for generals and things like that. So there are ways to kind of decorate your characters better.
And also each of the generals the whole point is to also give them a lore identity. So their Bloodborne spell and their traits are uniquely tied to them for a reason. So.
And then let's see. K. Daniel Koo asks, you said there's more modes coming. Is casual unranked mode coming back in patch 63?
It's a very good question. So casual mode is something we did have during the beta. However, casual is one of those things that's very challenging to matchmake against. So, some people figured out that one of our earliest casual mode matchmaked on rank, so they weren't happy, because that's not the objective of casual mode. Or they were matchmaking against other parameters. And we use a lot of different metrics for matchmaking. And casual mode is one of those things that's very challenging to create a good matchmaking experience while we have a kind of a smaller player pool during beta or something like that. So it is something we are bringing back. We're looking to bring back. We don't have a specific timeline. It's not something that we can announce for a specific batch, but we are obviously looking at that. And in terms of other game modes, there might be other meta game modes and things like that we're looking at right now, and we're definitely experimenting with a lot of things there, but nothing that's going to ship anytime soon. For release, the game modes that we have right now are what we're focusing on, and we're focusing balancing and building the game around that.
And as a jump off of that, my own personal question is, what about Gauntlet? How do you think when the game goes live, you're going to be opening it up to be 7 days a week, or do you always see it as this restricted experience?
We're going to be opening it up as we see the queue times, reach a point where we're satisfied with it.
Cool.
So that would be kind of the best way to answer that. So ideally, we want to do it for launch. However, there is a possibility that we're launching, going into production and live. However, our Steam release is staggered a little bit. It's coming a little bit further down the line. So some of these things kind of play into it as well.
There was a question that I've lost now, so I'm sorry I can't call out the person, but said, is anything changing with the Steam release? Is there going to be a different UI to go with the Steam UI in any way, or?
We are integrating deeply with Steam. However, the UI is going to stay the same. It's not going to drastically change it. The game that everyone's playing today, that's pretty much what people are going to see on Steam as well.
Cool. Let's see. There were a couple more I know. There's a lot of questions, believe it or not. There was a question about Spectator mode, if that's coming?
Yes. So Spectator mode is something that we've been internally testing a lot and we've been playing with a lot. And we already have replay mode, which is closely related to spectate mode in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of challenges that come with technical challenges, that I have to look at for spectate mode that we haven't solved yet. So the functionality is something that we are testing already internally, but rolling it out is the question is kind of what we want to anchor that around. Whether we want to anchor that around tournaments, whether we want to anchor that around spectating your friends, whether that means that anyone can spectate anybody. These are kind of open technical questions, and this is technical architecture things. You can't have a million people spectate one game that's running on one particular server kind of thing. We're just, we're not at that level of sophistication yet, folks.
Cranky Panda 01 says all of the devs in Discord are saying that Rushcat is getting nerfed to a 10-1 and General Health is getting buffed to 15.
Sounds about right.
Is this correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Confirmed.
Confirmed, yeah. Whatever the chat says, that's probably what's going to happen.
Quick, say all your best things and you'll, that'll all come true apparently. Let's see some more. Someone asks again with the Steam, are you going to be able to use your Steam wallet money to buy packs?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Is the game going to have trading cards? I'm curious about that.
Trading?
No, excuse me. Collectibles, the Steam trading cards.
The cosmetic ones?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. Good idea.
Cool.
Yeah. Steam is there's a lot of, from the achievements vector to the cards to there's so much fun stuff for us to build. It's almost like open-ended sandbox. We're so excited.
And I saw a couple questions. This is I think is an easy answer, but people asking that you'll be able to connect your existing account to your Steam account.
That's the principle. Yes,
cool.
That is probably where we're investing most of our time into, is to develop a system where both, either if you already have an account, that you can connect it to your Steam account. If you've never had an account before, you can easily jump in. You can find all your Steam friends and all the usual bells and whistles that come with that.
Cool. And that's a key objective for us for any sort of new platforms that we release on mobile or otherwise, that we want to ensure that that same account you can draw your collection and you can play it anywhere.
Yeah, it's a first-class experience on every. We want a first-class experience on every platform, not like a port. And we also obviously shared account, as in wherever you play, you get to use your same collection, your same unlocks, your same cosmetics, everything that you have.
Cool. And this is also not as relevant to our PC gamer audience, but what can we expect? Anything with maybe when the mobile version would be coming?
There's not a specific release date or schedule, but
Cool.
A prototyping in progress, development in progress. It's more of a question of time and when the right timing is. I mean, we want to focus obviously on PC, and we will focus on building a great game for the PC audience, since it is a competitive game, since it is a session-based game, and since that's where most of our most excited fan base has been. So we're going to continue, obviously, to focus on that before kind of switching gears 100% to another platform or something like that.
And we there's some last-minute questions I'll ask you about prismatic cards.
Keith, would you like to take that?
Those are coming really soon, so we're very, very close to finishing that, how it works, and essentially on a high level, they are going to be these really beautiful cosmetic foils that you can kind of collect.
Yeah, for those in the chat that might not be familiar, it's like our version of foiled cards, essentially the super rare foils.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Keith, you just look like you're sitting there just like wanting to burst with just talking about everything.
Yeah, I do. That's my dying wish.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges with developing a living game and a game that's live and out there and people are playing, is that we see 3 or 4 different alternatives of this game that are currently in testing, or 3 or 4 different changes to units that are happening at the same time. And we have this internally, we're like playing a game that is a month ahead of where the game is right now. So it's always it's hard to hold back all of the fun little spoilers, ideas, everything everybody's working on. Or when you see somebody on Reddit said, oh, they should change this one broken button in the game. You're like, oh, we changed that. It's coming. It's like always have to hold back.
So I think we're just running out of time now, but is there anything last you'd like to reveal before we end the stream? There have been some calls for one of the Magmar or one of the Vanar spells, if you can do it, but...
Sound okay?
Yeah, you can go for it at this point,
At this point. Do they want to hear Starhorn or they want to hear Vath?
Oh man, which is Starhorn?
Starhorn's the
Vanar?
alternate Magmar general.
Oh, alternate Magmar.
Did you guys ask for Magmar or did you guys ask for Vanar?
There have been calls for both, but more for Magmar. So I think we should go
Okay,
Magmar.
so you guys vote Vath or Starhorn. Which one do you guys want to hear?
Everyone's just saying both.
Of course they are.
I think. Let's see.
It's
Starhorn.
Starhorn?
Actually, it looks more like Vaths. There are more Vaths.
Oh. Starhorn's such a great name, though.
Yeah, there's definitely more Vaths at this point. I agree, though. Starhorn's a good one.
All right. So Vath the Immortal, the current Magmar general, will have a new Bloodborne spell called Overload. Your general gains +1 attack.
And the chat goes wild.
Just like permanently?
Maybe.
Oh man. Well, that's a good way to end it then. Thank you everyone for joining us. Keith and Emil, thank you so much for joining. If you did show up late, you can always watch the show after the fact on youtube.com/PCGamer, or you can go to iTunes and search PC Gamer Podcast, or just go to PCGamer.com/podcast. Please let us know if you enjoyed the show in the comments there, and the latest post at PCGamer.com/podcast. And you're always welcome to join us every Wednesday right here at twitch.tv/PCGamer at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you very much to everyone from the Duelyst community who joined us. Once again, thank you to Counterplay for joining us, and good luck with the launch next week.
Thank you. It's an honor.
And everyone who is not, when you're not playing Duelyst next Wednesday on its launch day, we'll see you then for the show. Bye, guys.